It's fucking hilarious. I don't understand it. I mean, they probably call you alt-right and me alt-right or whatever.
Oh yeah, all the time. I'm supposedly a Nazi and I'm alt-right or something, and like I've said nothing in recent years that is even remotely like that. You know, like since we're talking about me and my past, there are some chat logs from like 2000 where I said Heil Hitler or something, right? And that was like a chat room. Everybody was calling me a chink, and everybody was fucking edgy as hell. I hated those people,
right?
And I said the same things, right?
Have you seen what it's like out there, Murray? Do you ever actually leave the studio? Everybody just yells and screams at each other. Nobody's civil anymore. Nobody thinks what it's like to be the other guy.
That was like a chat room. Everybody was calling me a chink, and everybody was fucking edgy as hell. I hated those people,
right?
And I said the same things, right? And of course, everything is screen capped out of context, so it looks like I'm promoting Nazism or something, and it's ridiculous.
Of course,
and that's what they go for. Yeah, it's almost 20 years old, and they just can't get over it. And the funny thing is, when Gamergate was going on, some people in Gamergate used that against me, right? That's how they found the logs. And at the time, all the SJWs who I was friends with, they knew those logs were, they understood the context of it, right?
Right.
And they would defend me for it because I was one of them. I was one of their megaphones, if you want to call it that. But now, since I've supposedly switched sides, they use it against me, and they act like all the stuff that they believed never happened. It's like
right.
mental gymnastics. Jesus.
Like a maniac shooting flaming arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbor and says, "I was only joking."
Well, needless to say, we're going to tell your joke again. Now, if the people don't know, Sarah Silverman was on Conan O'Brien about years ago at this point.
You're right.
And she told a joke which she meant to be funny. It offended certain members of the Asian community. You asked for equal time. You have it here tonight. We have to set the stage by telling the joke again. Let's hear the joke. Tell it as quickly as you can. Because I'm sick of it by now.
Likewise. It's a joke about getting a jury duty notice, and you got to fill out this form, and you send it in, and you're randomly selected, and I don't want to do jury duty.
No one does.
So I'm filling out the form, and my friend said, why don't you write something really inappropriate, like I hate chinks, And I'm thinking, yeah, but when you think about it, I don't want people to think that of me. I just want to get out of jury duty. So I just filled out the form, and I wrote, I love chinks. Thank you. That's the joke, It's a joke. It's a joke that points.
So where is the joke?
Well, I have to say that that's not the biggest laugh I've ever heard a joke get, but it did get a laugh. And considering the setup here, stacked against that joke, that means that joke is still funny.
Really?
Well, if with this setup, that joke still got any kind of a laugh, you got to give something to that joke.
Well, can I point something out for the uninitiative, for those who don't know? I mean, calling a Chinese person a chink is the same thing as calling a black person nigger.
Absolutely.
This is the way we take it, and we don't think that racial slurs should be used in this kind of off-the-cuff kind of way, because it gives more permission for people to use it in less appropriate situations.
If I might just interrupt for 1 second to address our censors directly. This is going to be a show about race and some of the terms people use. Please, I know it's ABC policy to bleep out these words. It's just going to make you look silly. Let us have an adult discussion. The show is on after midnight. We're not using it in a way to offend people.
This is the most appropriate time to use this language, because we're using it
but we're not using
in context.
We're not using it
for a reason.
To be right. We're not using it to be vulgar. We're trying to have an open discussion about this.
And an honest discussion.
And I believe that comedy reflects society, and I feel that that joke is a joke that points a finger at racism, just like it's your job to point your finger at racism. And I think that it's inappropriate and it's counterproductive to demand an apology for someone who, like you, is illuminating racism just for doing it in a different way that you do it.
I think you're giving yourself too much credit. I think that, first of all, I understand satire. She said this was satire, it was taken out of context. I said there was no context. I enjoy good satire. Satire is a great device for making great points through comedy. But if you don't know how to do satire correctly, you make situations worse.
You're going to tell me how to do satire?
You make people
No, but
believe.
Let
me finish my point. If I can finish my point.
I'm trying to.
If I can finish my point.
That's what my act is about.
If I can finish my point. If you don't know how to do satire correctly, you run the risk of making people think that you really believe what you're saying. And until you know how to do satire correctly, I'd stay away from it.
Well, look at the thought it's provoked.
So you're telling me, you are telling me, sir, that there is some joke that could use the word chink done correctly, satirically,
I think it is
that would
difficult.
be okay.
No, I don't
Wait
think
a second. That's what you said. You said it just wasn't done correctly. So what? Give me an example.
No, I am just addressing one of the points you said, which was satire. I'm saying it wasn't good satire anyway, but I'm saying...
But that implies that some joke would be of such good satire that she could have said chink.
What she could have said, I hate Chinese people, I love Chinese people, would have gone, okay, funny joke, haha, and that would have been over with.
That's not the point
The point
of the
is
joke.
you use a slur that you thought you could get away with on national television.
That's actually not
You
true.
would
I
not
used to
have
say
said
with
the
nigger, and
N-word
I have said
on the
that
same
on
podcast.
Conan the
NBC
last
would have
time.
shut
Has
you
it ever
down.
been edited out?
No.
So on Conan O'Brien, you said a joke using the N-word, and it was never edited out.
That's right. You can get the tape.
The thing that irks me was that Sarah came onto this show to defend herself, to save face, and people didn't give me the courtesy of asking me to be on here and talk for myself. But here I am.
You've talked to yourself in countless
newspapers.
newspapers.
So she comes on the show here, and she says she comes on like a wounded bird, and she goes, this guy Aoki, he has cast my name with racism in thousands of periodicals across the country, and it hurts. I want an apology from him. Well. Think of the hurt that you felt and multiply that by the millions of people that you offended by using that word, and I think you get a little bit of a sense of what we feel.
You know what?
One other point.
Well,
one other point. When you're playing with racial slurs, you're playing with fire. And if you're going to be playing with fire, expect to get burned.
That is so jackass.
You know what? This is why I find this really fascinating, and I'm glad you're having this discussion, because it needs to be had. We need to have an open dialogue about race, racism, sexism, homophobia. Here's the thing. I'd rather be here talking about a movie. I'd rather be here talking about other issues. But because racism and sexism and other deplorable attitudes and behavior is so prevalent in our society, we have to talk. I'm tired of talking about this.
But I'm not, and that's
so
what I
tired.
do.
But I don't want to convert anyone. I'm talking to my choir, because I can't tell you how many times I'm at a dinner table, or I'm playing golf, or whatever, and I have to hear someone say, oh, he really Jewed me down on that, or he was slow as a nigger, or look at that beaner run, and then I have to say...
Who are you hanging out with?
Who do you hang out with?
God.
Let me tell you. When I am in a company,
that's what you get when you play golf.
There you go. But when I'm with a mixed crowd, I cannot tell you 99% of the time someone is going to make a racial slur.
And the fact that that exists, that's what I address.
Your joke isn't helping it.
If you want
Yes, it is.
Sarah, if you
Look
want
at
to
this.
make a
We
joke,
wouldn't have this forum if I didn't tell that joke.
Can I make a point?
It's
if you
only
want to
not
make a joke,
helping it in amongst the hypersensitive.
If you want to talk about the Jewish community and make jokes about them, that's fine. That's fine. But once you start making about other ethnic groups, there's a different element that comes into place with this thing.
Yeah, it
I don't
thought.
think people really understand the hurtfulness of this word. I mean, whether it's nigger or chink or jap, these words have been used to subjugate minorities, to make them out to be less than human. Once we make these people less than human, we can do awful things to them.
Yes,
okay?
but those,
we can lynch Chinese men at the turn of the century when there's too many of them, or they get too uppity.
All right, here we go. Maintain humanity under 500 million. So, how many people we got to kill?
We got to kill a lot of people.
Well, Monsanto's doing a good job. Maybe Monsanto, maybe they did this. Yeah, it's a good possibility. Who knows? But they want to kill plenty of people.
We just know that they're killing a lot of people.
Here we go. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Okay. Well, that's eugenics.
I mean, whether it's nigger or chink or jap, these words have been used to subjugate minorities, to make them out to be less than human. Once we make these people less than human, we can do awful things to them.
Yes,
okay?
but
we can lynch Chinese men at the turn of the century when there's too many of them, or they get too uppity.
But it is not the turn of the century, sir. It is the turn of the other century.
If I can finish, sir. In the 1940s, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, right, people were saying Jap this, Jap that. they called people Japs so much that 120,000 Japanese Americans, loyal Japanese Americans, could be put in internment camps for 3 years while everyone else stood by because they were just
that was
Japs.
wrong.
One of the agonies here is half of this audience does not believe that they're racist.
Oh, wait, well, let me...
I am not more than half.
Let me ask this.
You can't fix it if you don't know you have it.
But wait a minute, I want to ask...
How do you explain what's going on here in this country?
I want to say then, who is? That's like going to Germany. I went to Germany in 1957. And I wanted to live with German people and ask them, did they understand what they were doing?
Yeah.
You know, taking their neighbors away and burning them up. Did they understand what was happening? Yeah. Everybody that I talked to knew what was going on. They did nothing. But if you go and say, well, now, who believed what Hitler was saying? Nobody. Everybody says no. You see, every single person says, no,
so
I didn't have anything to do with it.
People who are saying they're not racist, you're accusing them of not doing it.
No, I'm not accusing. What I would do is if you have to take a break, is give my definition. You see, give my definition of what I say that racism is.
A functional definition of racism, white supremacy, which you identify with white supremacy, is therefore, for all practical purpose, as follows. The behavioral syndrome of individual and collective color inferiority and numerical inadequacy, which includes patterns of thought, speech, and action as seen in members of the white organization or race. And we'll be back in just a moment.
In the 1940s, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, right, people were saying Jap this, Jap that. They called people Japs so much that 120,000 Japanese Americans, loyal Japanese Americans, could be put in internment camps for 3 years while everyone else stood by because they were just
that was
Japs.
wrong.
But more recently, an Asian American student was stabbed to death. He was of Chinese descent, and the assailant wrote "chink" on his car. Now, we're talking about a month ago. We're not talking about
and we're talking about a lone nut. And to indict the entire society for that is disingenuous. Of course you are.
No, we're not.
Now, the media is going to downplay it. Oh, he was a lone wolf. Oh, they're trying to spin it. They didn't want to put his face out there. They didn't want to put his name out there. They were so reluctant to do that.
He understood the gravity of it, and he was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope. And yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did.
Alec Manassian wasn't part of a terrorist group, but it may not be as simple as suggesting he was a lone wolf.
More recently, an Asian American student was stabbed to death. He was of Chinese descent, and the assailant wrote "chink" on his car. Now, we're talking about a month ago. We're not talking about
and we're talking about a lone nut. And to indict the entire society for that is disingenuous. Of course you are.
No, we're not.
I'm just indicting Sarah.
We're putting it
I'm
in
just indicting
context.
Sarah.
All right, I have to take a commercial. We'll come back to this subject.
Fun and terror goes hand in hand with the white supremacists. They've made terror fun. You dig?
A few weeks ago, right in Southern California, in Laguna Hills, California, a Taiwanese American family was having a lot of problems with racial hatred in their community. Okay, and it ended with this 17-year-old boy, Kenneth Chu, being stabbed to death. And they found on the back of his car etched "chink." But I bet you would say that his family should take some comfort in knowing that the term didn't really hurt him.
To link that is hurtful to us.
And I have people in my own family that hurts deeply. But I feel strongly about what I talk about, that it isn't racist. It's about racism, you know? You've attacked crazy people. He went up and attacked Susan Sarandon, who we all know is racist despite her thin veneer.
It's easy for you to say, I'm an equal opportunity offender. I can make fun of all these people. Why don't you ask us how we feel about it? We'll tell you if it's okay or not.
And you know that I love hearing about it.
Wait a second. It is a cheap political trick to somehow link that horrific crime to a joke.
She said the word didn't hurt me.
I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about all Asian Americans.
The Asian American community. This attitude, this word, and the attitude and the hatred behind that word "chink," you killed this guy.
You know what? There are only two Asian people I know that I don't like. One is you, and the other is...
I'm hurt.
Yeah, and the other is my friend Steve, who actually went pee-pee in my Coke.
Okay, I have to take a break.
Yeah, he's like...
Joining us is comedian Paul Mooney, who has known Richards for 30 years. Paul, nice to see you. Paul, I know you've known him for an awful long time, 30 years, as I just noted. If I had run into you on Thursday, the day before this happened, I said, what's Michael Richards like? What would you have said to me?
Funny, kooky, slapstick, very talented.
Would you have ever sort of been suspicious that there would be an event like Friday night?
No. No.
What's your thought now?
Well, it's like, I got phone calls about it, and I didn't see it, and then I saw the tape, and I thought I was at a Ku Klux Klan rally. It was like beyond belief to me, and for me personally, I think he had a complete nervous breakdown. That wasn't a stand-up. That was a breakdown. He outed himself. He said in the tape that, now you know how I feel, and he was screaming the N-word and carrying on and ranting. And, we're Americans. We have the right to freedom of speech. We have a right to be funny as comedians. I believe in that. And he just crossed the line. It wasn't funny. He couldn't let me out of it. He spilled the beans, and then he didn't pick them up. He left. So it made me think that he meant it.
Is there a way that he can...
Hello?
Is there a way he can redeem himself?
Yes, he can redeem himself.
How?
He can take that same act and perform, and he can take that same act and perform at the Apollo. Then he can come back and talk to me.
All right, and by the Apollo.
No, I'm serious. Apollo Theater, the Apollo audience.
In Harlem. Yeah. I was just going to tell for those of the viewers who are unfamiliar with Apollo, the Apollo Theater in Harlem. Okay. What do you think would happen if he did that?
You know what? That's funny. That's funny. The Apollo is world renowned. They know the Apollos. Trust me, sweetheart. The Apollo in Harlem is as white as you, so don't worry about it.
Actually, you know what,
safe.
Paul?
But anyway,
I've been to the Apollo.
What? You probably live there. But anyway, listen. No, I know. The Apollo's a great place. Anyway, he can do that, or he can host the BET Hip Hop Awards. He has to redeem himself for me, or he can come here to LA and go to Watts tonight at midnight and wear red. And then when he comes back, we can talk. Or he can go to Africa and adopt a black baby. Then I'll redeem him.
Is this a career killer for him if he doesn't do any of the things that you suggest?
I think that he needs help. He needs Dr. Ruth, Dr. Phil, Dr. Laura, all the doctors he can get his hands on, because he definitely has a problem. You can do racial jokes as long as they're funny, as long as there's an out for me. It's like, look, I'm going to do a racial joke for you just to prove it to you, okay?
Okay.
There was a white woman that was baking a chocolate cake for her little white son. She turned her back, he took the chocolate, rubbed it on his face, said, "Look, Mommy, I'm black." And the mother slapped him, said, "Don't you ever say that in this house. Go tell your father what you said." He put the chocolate on his face, he went to his dad. "Look, Daddy, I'm black." The daddy slapped him. "Don't say this. Go to your grandfather." "I'm black, Grandpa." He slapped him. "Go back to your mother." The mother sit him down and said, "Timmy, now what have you learned today?" And Timmy said, "I've learned I've been black for 5 minutes and already I hate you white people.
And on that note, Paul, I got to go. Thank you very much.